as a way of introducing our speaker for today. He is no stranger to most of us, Jeff Long. And Jeff is going to take the service from here till the end of the Lessons for Living. But I wanted to introduce him. I've been mulling over how to introduce Jeff to those of us who already know him so well, and also to those who do not. And I guess what comes to me most is the deep, deep, deep spiritual nature of his presence since I first met him in 2004. And he brings a mixture of worldly music, so-called, and spiritual music, so-called. And he melds them all together so that we all know that singing and music are really the spirit that lifts us up and carries us on. So we were with Jeff last night, some 32 of us, and some of them missing because, as I said, they do not know how to So, but it was such a joy to be there, not only to support him, but to allow his joy to lift us up and have us sing and dance and soak in Epsom salts when we got home. There's a picture of us 32 strong in the community room that we purchased on our way out. So please, please look at that picture to remind us of the joy we had last night, but to also allow us to know the joy that Jeff always brings to us and the message through his music. Jeff?
Thank you. Thank God. I see my friends and folks here, some mentors, but everybody in here I've either learned a lot from or a little from. I'm going to be banging on this little note for a while because it's going to be one of the keys to meditation. Hopefully if I've got feedback it'll be in tune. I can't guarantee that, but started off this way. One of the reasons I'm going to probably sit down for most of this service today is Friday night, Mary Kay and I were playing a little gig up in Mountain Home. Most of y'all know I'm a professional musician, and I'm going to be alluding to that from time to time. But when I was setting up gear there, I decided to take a header off one of this man's 3 zebra rugs out to just splat. Full-blown, spread-eagled out on the floor as if I was once again a 17-year-old Eastern Arkansas football player doing line drills. Well, I hurt my hand a little bit, but it's okay by the grace of God. And I fell right on my hernia scars, but so far they're okay by the grace of God. I've got some bruised ribs. I guess I still know how to fall, and I guess that's okay. Between football and being drunk all those years, I guess I learned how to fall correctly. It's all the only thing I can attribute it to, being a 61-year-old, obviously obese man. But because of that, I am going to allow myself to remain seated for most of the service. I hope y'all don't find that in bad taste. If you do, look what I did for you. I wore a tie today. I mean, I can't do much more than that. I even got socks on. But we're going to go ahead and try our meditation right now, and it's going to be based on unity. And in music, there's harmony and there's unity, and unity involves one note. Maybe in sequence, but one note at a time. That's unity. Here's harmony. Here's more complex harmony. Or even more complex. But it all comes back to one note. And sometimes I think about this. Now, by the way, this is middle C, in case any of y'all are taking notes. I think about this, and it's almost like this was the perfect Garden of Eden. No one knew anything but this one note. And the way the story goes, and I've got to the point in my life, I don't care if it's literal or metaphorical or some blending of the two, in terms of the Garden of Eden story, but somebody ate the wrong doggone apple, apparently. Of course, we'll never know if that somebody, I don't want to cast aspersions, but it's one of these double X types, you know. If somebody would have just asked God, why can't I eat the apple? For all we know, God might have said, well, since you're mature enough to ask, have at it. But that ain't what happened. Somebody tried to take a little shortcut. Like some of us tried to do with booze. Or maybe some of us tried to do with shopping. Or maybe some of us try to do with gambling, sex, food, unfortunately, all kind of things. We try to take little shortcuts. And Eve tried to take that little shortcut, and all of a sudden, instead of the one, we have two. That's not a particularly pleasant sound, is it? For most of our Western ears, is it? But as we go through now, we'd like you to try to close your eyes and just lay back and relax. Whoever's in charge of the lights, just bring them down a little bit. Just make peace with that sound. Because the way Spirit works with me, the minute you make peace with that dissonance, that crisis, some higher forces tend to be introduced, maybe to make it a little bit more pleasing, maybe even a little bit more pleasing as we go along. Relax. Let the sound be like pure golden, beautifully cleansing liquid that's coming in from your sixth chakra, courses down, it will bounce back up again. But let's bring it from a higher place right now. Still more pleasant. Now let's go ahead and ground it a little bit. All of a sudden from that dissonant note, we've introduced some other notes to support the one and the two and the three and the four. Don't be tied to the words. Let the notes talk to you. Let the golden liquid talk to you. Sounds a little different now, doesn't it? Let's try that again. If we could have the lights back up. You know, for somebody like me, one of the beautiful things about meditation, it could go on for a while. It could go on for a brief period. Card-carrying professionals like Chris can take it to a whole new level compared to somebody like me. But I grab it where I can as a recovering alcoholic and a very imperfect human being. And one of my favorite ways to meditate is I've got a colleague of mine that's going to come up here on stage and join me. My good buddy Mary Kay. We're going to keep this going for a while to show you how these things all tie together and all weave together. Now, I'm sure most of you Y chromosomes, and maybe even a size-bomb minority of you double X chromosomes would say, Mary Kay definitely qualifies as I can be. I'm just saying that's the case for me. But a lot of times, it's not what she looks like or even engaging any other sense other than this one. We talk a lot about sight in here, and when we say God is all, both visible and invisible, I'm sorry folks, I guess I'm still the theological rebel. I say God is all, both perceptible and imperceptible. I'm not telling you that because I want you to love me. I'm telling you that because that's what enables me to love you. Because we got more than one sense. We got 5 of them that we know about. God knows how many we don't know about. But anyway, when I'm on the gig and I'm meditating, when I'm lucky enough that we've got a situation where maybe people aren't paying too much attention, Mary Kay might sing something along these lines, and I just recommend to you to just sort of soak it in. I'm not going to really even unitize the lyrics because these are some lyrics that tend to stand on their own. It's a beautiful jazz standard. Sunny Gets Blue.
When Sunny gets blue, your eyes get gray and cloudy, then the rain begins to fall. Pitter patter, what can matter? Love is gone, so what can matter? No sweet love man comes to call. When Sunny gets blue, she breathes a sigh of sadness, like the wind that stirs the trees. When that sets the leaves to swing, like some violin a-playing strange and haunting melodies. People used to love to hear her laugh, sing and smile. That is how she got her name. Since that Saturday, she lost her smile, changed her style. Somehow she's not the same. But memories will fade, and pretty dreams will rise up where the other dreams fell through. Hurry, new life, hurry me.
speaking of which, I've got a lot of stuff to cover. I've got a jillion topics, but we're not going to get to all of them. Because for one thing, my voice is going to give out, which is probably something we can all be grateful for. But one thing I want to talk about is a beloved spiritual text that a lot of y'all might not know about. Now, I've been turned on. I've read Emily Cady a couple of times. I've read the Bible at least 3 times all the way through. I've read almost all of the Quran. I've read a good bit of the Bhagavad Gita. I've read a bunch of Emmett Fox stuff. Holmes. I've read all kind of Scott Peck. I like him a lot. I've got bunches of other people. Doug Turner on the Holistic Universe. That's one of my very favorites. And I've gotten all kind of good concepts from that help me stay on the path. But the one that really started me on my path, in my case, and once again, I share because my ego wants you obviously to love me, but my spirit knows that I love you, therefore I share. And anything I might tell you, if it's not your opinion and you can't resolve it with your core beliefs, viva la différence, right? That's okay. But I want to share my path because it is something that is very, to me at least, unity compatible. And the book I'm referring to is the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it is a very interesting book, and it is tailored to folks like me that tend to drink and drink and drink and drink some more. But it can be adapted to people that tend to shop and shop and shop and shop some more. Are people that worry and worry and worry and worry some more. Or even along the lines of maybe some of our fundamentalist brethren, and we got to be real careful in here that attitudinally we don't mimic them. Because one of my teachers is Chris over there, and I know Chris is very big on Eastern religion, and there's philosophy that goes along with that. Here in the West, we tend to think of things in terms of either or, yes or no, black or white. Some of y'all that are in a minority, that black and white might be particularly telling. But yin and yang would have it, there ain't no black and white, we're all just different shades of brown. That's way more Eastern way to look at it. And another way of saying that, what's different between us is much less important than what we have in common. Here, let's just do it musically. Here is yes and no. Here is yin and yang. You tell me which one makes more sense. Okay? Well, anyway, the Big Book has got yin and yang all over the place because it's got to, because it was written to try to help very opinionated, stuck in the mud, jackass alcoholics like me. Okay? So they had to open this spiritual gate as far as they could. One of the many wonderful things that they said is that we think cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. Now, how many congregations do you hear that for? We think cheerfulness and laughter makes for usefulness. By the way, I told some of y'all earlier, after we got off the boat last night, my favorite bartender on the boat, Tobias, good big old Memphis boy, love him to death. He's loving those Grizzlies this year, for sure. But he came down, and he was sorry he had to bartend on the second deck last night, because he came down and said, man, that's my kind of church. I was so proud of y'all I could have busted. You know, love that stuff. So, cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. Outsiders are sometimes shocked when we burst into merriment over a seemingly tragic experience out of the past. But why shouldn't we laugh? Why shouldn't we laugh? We have recovered from booze or dope or shopping or being stuck into some kind of fundamentalist philosophy or some other pathology. we have recovered and have been given the power to help others. Okay? Everyone knows that those in bad health and those who seldom play do not laugh much. So let each family, biological, spiritual, what have you, let each family play together or separately as much as their circumstances warrant. Here is as close as the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous comes to giving you a definition of God. Believe it or not, they're even more open, I think, than we are here in Unity. But there is a little tell in the big book. This is from page 133. And it tells us we are sure God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. Everything else, all in the steps, God as we understood him, God as we understand him, your concept of God, we're leaving it wide open. Hell, one of the chapters of the book is entitled We Agnostics. How's that for open? You know, but there's a little tell there. And it is on page 133, and page 133 is not dealing with the first step or the second step, it's dealing with step number 12. Which the beginning words of that step, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. So it comes from that section of the book. We are sure God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. We cannot subscribe to the belief that this life is a vale of tears, though it was just once that for many of us. But it is clear that we made our own misery. God didn't do it. Avoid then the deliberate manufacture of misery, but if trouble comes, cheerfully capitalize it as an opportunity for God to demonstrate omnipotence. Okay? Sort of neat, isn't it? That's a very good spiritual book. I would recommend it to everybody. You don't have to be an alcoholic to gain from it. I assure you that. There's always been a lot of crosstalk between Unity and AA. People like Dr. Carl Jung, people like Emmett Fox, he's a religious science guy, Norman Vincent Peale, all kind of folk. You know, Doug's mentor, AA guy, okay? So there's plenty of it. So I'm just sharing, that is my basic text for today. And those are words that are very telling with me that saved my life because some people took some time out to share those with me. Now, at times, we will let words maybe take on too much power. And they cause people to do things like run airplanes into buildings and so forth. And we give them all this power. That's one of the reasons I love music so much. Say diddly. Different kind of language. Like when you walk out your back door and you see the little birds and the squirrels playing. How about when the dogs are going off, when the noon hour siren goes off? That's God talking to me. I always try to get home at noon on Wednesday because I know what they're going to be doing. Oh! Everybody do that with me one time. Let yourself go. You know, a lot of times I think our fellow creatures on this planet really have a more pure form of language than we do. And I think music sort of helps us there. But there have been wonderful songs that the melody is a language, but the words themselves are a language. And I got my good friend still sitting here up here on this stage, but for those of you that have been around long enough, I'm going to hum a little bit of this song, and I bet you can fill in the tag word to it, okay? I bet you can. What? Downtown. That's right. Well, let's just go ahead and do it. Let's let Mary Kay do this, and let this thing free you up. For those of us that are a bit spiritually advanced and are not a 13-year-old acne-ridden boy with hormones raging who is getting aroused when the wind blows, Just let the words change to down deep or something. In fact, I got a little something now. Down deep, walking on sacred ground. Down deep, hear that angelic sound. Down deep, heaven is found within you. Down deep, down. All right, so see, we can unitize anything, right? But this song sort of stands on its own. Here you go, Mary. Shows.
Downtown, baby, you know some little places to go where they never close.
Never close.
Downtown, listen to the rhythm of the music bossa nova. You'll be dancing with the people, the night is over, now we begin. The lights are much brighter than we can forget all the time. We'll get on the dance floor. Downtown, it could be great to go downtown.
There you go. I wanted to talk about that one a little bit because that's not intended. I'll have to turn the rascal down. Because that song is one of these things that is a very much a spiritual reference point for me. Because I was a tortured kid in a lot of ways. I had two parents that were drunks. I graded them on the curve. They did the best they could. No doubt about it. But just the beautiful, liberating quality. The words are nice, but the melody. They call that a motif in classical music. And motif is like a mantra, musically speaking, is what a motif is. Isn't that sort of magical? It's just a nice little melody. And it very much helped me along the way. For some reason, I had a loving little corner of the universe that kept me alive through all of that nonsense that I went through. And a very useful concept that one of my mentors, Doug, is sitting back there many moons ago, introduced me to is called monkey mind. And I had a very, very, very active and healthy monkey mind. It could go mountain climbing over molehills all day long, and it very much could do it. And then it found a wonderful shortcut a few months after I first heard that song Downtown. A wonderful little shortcut to God. And like most of us in here, I believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. But for some of us, the shortcut to God is very much fraught with peril. The name of that shortcut that I tried to take at the age of 13 was Country Club Malt Liquor. And I was downtown. I was in Little Rock, Arkansas, which is a pretty big deal for a kid from Monroe County, Arkansas. Little Rock was the height of sophistication to me. By the way, the only true sophistication is innocence. Think about it. Think about it a minute. I don't say this stuff to have you love me. I say this stuff because I love you. And that is my business. How you feel about me is sort of not my business. But anyway, that's very much a reference point. So I kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker until I was introduced to this wonderful thing that I've been alluding to called the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to read a little something else to y'all from the book. And this is something that I think is very much apropos for the 21st century. Are any of y'all as sick of the cell phones as I am? And I know I'm probably like a blacksmith 120 years ago. But I wish we could just ban those rascals for a lot, because isn't it ironic about this wonderful technology that's so supposed to bring us so closely together? In my other career as a counselor, I'm reading studies all the time. Guess what some of the new, hardest to treat addictions are? Technological addictions. You know, they're studying 13, 14-year-old kids. They don't know to have a conversation. They don't know how to do it. There's no reason for them to do it. Everything is sound bites, flashes, electronic images on a screen. And the heroes, especially for some of the young ladies, are anorexic and bulimic women that have nothing to do whatsoever with reality. It's an interesting old world. I do hope we have a little shift in consciousness. And I know we're going to. Because just like an alky, we're going to have to. We're going to have to. But along those lines, with our technology, which is supposed to be a solution and not a problem, and progress is supposed to be a solution and not a problem, and the Bible is supposed to be a solution and not a problem. I love the Bible, but I don't think we worship the tool. We should worship that which the tool is supposed to take us toward. The tool itself is just a tool. Maybe a divinely inspired tool, but still a tool. This is a real interesting part of the big book to me. We ask ourselves this: are not some of us just as biased and unreasonable about the realm of spirit as were the ancients about the realm of the material? Even in the present century, bear in mind this was written in 1934, even in the present century, American newspapers were afraid to print an account of the Wright brothers' first successful flight at Kitty Hawk. Had not all the efforts at flight failed before? Did not Professor Langley's flying machine go to the bottom of the Potomac River? Was it not true that the best mathematical minds had proved man could never fly? See, they even had talking heads in 34 too. Had not the people said that God had reserved this privilege to the birds? Only 30 years later, the conquest of the air was almost an old story, and airplane travel was in full swing. But in most fields, our generation has witnessed a complete liberation of our thinking about the material. So any longshoreman, a Sunday supplement, about describing a proposal to take men to the moon, and he'll probably say something like, I bet they do it, maybe not so long either. Guess what happened in 69? Even in some of the astronauts went to see some holy men in India, and some of the holy men apparently asked them what took them so long, but that's a whole another thing entirely. But he'll say that, and is not our age characterized by how quickly we will discard old ideas for new ones? Okay? The complete willingness to throw away a gadget or something that does not work anymore. We had to ask ourselves why we shouldn't apply to our human problems this same readiness to change our point of view. Open-mindedness. In unity, are we really open-minded about our brethren that are maybe a little bit more fundamentalist than we are? Are we really open-minded about some of their icons like the cross? Yeah, there have been a lot of wars fought over it too. There have been a lot of people that have improved their lives over it too. Maybe I'm a rebel in both schools. I don't know. I like the Jesus last 4 days. I like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You know, they all resonate with me. But as a drunk, my favorite part is Thursday in the garden, because I can relate. I've been in jail. Please, God, take this cup from me. I can relate to that take this cup from me stuff, right? So if the master teacher can have a moment of weakness, who am I not to? What this section is trying to get over to us, that we have developed a bias against God and against spirit, whether we want to admit it or not. We believe in the cell phone, we believe in the computer, we believe in the internal combustion engine, we believe in the interstate. All of these things, progress itself, which began approximately 500 years ago, give or take, and we believed in it so strong, there may not be a Florida 100 years from now. It may no longer exist. Recently, the island nations, the small island nations of the world have tried to get together to tell us big folk, please put the brakes on this. Please do. Okay? But we want to worship at that altar. So you can get you need iPod 5, now you need 6, now you need 7, now you need 8. I need the 5th drink, now I need the 6th, now I need the 7th, now I need the 8th. Does it sound familiar? Okay. Well, I do believe in our little group here in my little Unity family very, very strongly. And I do believe we're the kind of people that can begin to see that not just in them, but in ourselves. As the 4th step of the program says, made a fearless and searching moral inventory of who? Me. I don't have to take your inventory. I got all I can say, great song, taking me, taking mine. So let's open our minds to all of it. That's what I try to do. That's what keeps me breathing. There's so much in here that is so beautiful. And I want you to read the last part of this little section. By the way, what I'm reading to you is the part that comes from We Agnostics. Let me slip back down for a minute. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup. Now, what would some kind of God be? The internet, her, him, Madonna, toxic Islam, toxic Christianity, toxic anything. But we're going to have faith. Even the one that says, I have no faith, well, they have faith that they have no faith. You can't avoid it. That is a part of our makeup just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but God was there. God was as much a fact as we were. We found the great reality deep down within us. Deep down, deep down. See, at 13, that's really what I heard. I didn't know that's what I was hearing, but that's what I heard. In the last analysis, it is only there that he can be found. It is so with us. Now, if that doesn't sound like the master teacher talking to you about where you're going to find heaven, I don't know what does. And I believe that. And I look out at y'all and I know that every one of y'all carries that within. So let me just leave you with this. I've gone a little bit over. But there's other part to the book that comes at the end of what's known as the Spiritual Experience Appendix in the big book. And it talks about 3 qualities that are absolutely essential for recovery for the alcoholic and by extension for all of us to journey the spiritual path, because after all, we're spiritual beings having what?
Human
Experience. And these qualities are honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. Think of it as a 3-legged stool. If one of those legs on that 3-legged stool is 1 inch shorter than the other, what's going to tend to happen? A lot of instability, right? Now, when I got to the program, I was pretty big on open-mindedness. Not nearly as open as I thought, but I was pretty good at that. Pretty good with the honesty, in a sense. But the willingness, I'm still a lazy rascal. I got to watch that. I've got to watch it, be on guard every step of the way. Okay? But I believe in those 3 qualities, and I believe they're the key to happiness, at least for this recovering unitive musician alcoholic. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And I've got a beloved creator that if I'm ever a little bit short on those qualities, guess what? hey, Big Daddy or Big Mama, depending on what mood I'm in, give me a little bit more of yada yada. I seem to think based on my inventory I need it. And magic happens, and miracles happen all the time. All right, thank y'all so much. That's about all I got for today for you, but thanks for letting me share with you. I hope I get to do it again sometime, and God bless us one and all.